Welcome to the Road is Dead podcast. I'm your host, Rob Curtis. Episode number 122, I believe, unless I messed something up. But we're joined by quite a few people here today, more than anticipated for sure. Here in the studio to my left, we have
Tim Strelecki
and Leah Sanda.
And then joining us remotely from Colorado,
it's Mike Friedman.
And just because he was on the phone with Mike when we all connected, long-time listener, first-time caller,
Tim Special.
There you go. That's your cue. Where are you at now, Tim? Are you in Tennessee now?
Oh, it's complicated. I am in Indiana, which I've been here for 6 months.
What?
Yeah, Denver to Knoxville with a stop in Indiana, but on Sunday I'm driving all my stuff down to Knoxville.
So. Where are you at in Indiana?
Evansville.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Southern tip.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly where it is.
I spent a lot of summers in Evansville racing BMX.
There's not a lot going on here, and that BMX track is no longer here.
Oh, that's
you
sad.
Want me to go get it?
That's sad. That was good. That was a good spot. They had a good little thing going there.
Yeah, my sister got married in Evansville, so I'm pretty familiar with it.
Evansville.
It's a town.
It's a delivery.
Yeah.
So
not much around.
Catching up. So how you live in my state of Indiana?
Be honest.
It's okay. It's flat. Actually, it's a little more hilly than I thought.
It's hillier down where you're
outside
at.
of Evansville isn't that bad, but it's
kind of like it's like Southern Illinois. You know, you get into places when you're around St. Louis or near the Mississippi or what have you, where there's actually some elevation. But you don't have that up here in Northern Illinois or Northern Indiana for that matter. How's this Midwestern talk for you, Mike?
Tim's?
No, just our Midwestern talk. Now that we're covering, the traditional geography of the elevation. Midwestern area.
I don't know if I'd call anything out here elevation.
Well, elevation meaning bumps.
Yeah.
Nothing like an overpass.
So I can understand.
All right, so we got a lot of stuff to cover that we wrote down, and then we ended up having tons of conversations anyway while we were writing stuff down. We probably have already talked about everything and denying everyone the ability to watch us cover it on the podcast, but we might as well jump into some of it. First things first, I want to get this completely out of the way and come back to it like 4 times throughout the podcast. Go ahead and grab yourself some chamois cream because you're going to be sitting down listening to this one for a while. Hopefully you're on the trainer and getting some work done, and nothing goes with the trainer better than some buttonhole chamois cream. Pick it up at your local retailer, which would be any fine cycling establishment in the U.S. And if your cycling establishment in the U.S. does not currently have it, guess what? You need to tell them to get it. Ask for it by name. Tell them to give us a call. We will get them set up. We are carried at 700 different dealers throughout the country. So it is available. It is out there. Also, you can find us at all the places where you normally buy things online, including our shop. Outside of that, we are working to try to get back into Europe. So that's something we're undergoing right now. And, of course, it is semi-available in Canada for those of you that are looking at Canada. And by Canada, I mean hit up your Trek store. And occasionally some people have it on Amazon up there. So just go look for it. Ask for it by name, buttonhole chamois cream. And if you need some wheels, just go ahead and give us a call here at Cymet.
Can I tell you something about chamois cream?
Sure.
I cardinal sin, right? But I was down in Knoxville about a month ago, and I was riding, or going to go ride. So I went to my new local bike shop, and I won't name the brand, but it was not Buttonhole. And I thought to myself, how bad could it be? And in 15 years or whatever that I've been riding, I've only ever used Buttonhole.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know, and I was actually kind of curious. And I got to tell you, this is not. I'm not just blowing smoke up your butt. It sucked, and I won't say the brand, but it's a very common big brand. I miss my Buttonhole.
There's one brand that is carried at 3,000 to 4,000 dealers in the U.S., and it's that brand. We all know what it is. And it's unfortunately it's ubiquitous, and it's one of those brands that defines the entire segment. So kind of like how we call a reciprocating saw a sawzall. Or, any of the, we call a facial tissue, a Kleenex, that kind of thing. So I cannot tell you the number of times I've had an athlete that wants to work a sponsorship out call me up and actually say the name of that brand in reference to the material. Like, I love your, and say that brand name. And it's like, yeah, that's a brand name. We just make chamois cream, you just call it chamois cream. Oh, really? I have sales reps do it all the time. And it's just like, you just told me you don't really know what the hell you're talking about. Nice mug there.
Nice product placement.
Mike.
There you go.
You're welcome.
One of those mugs.
Yeah, you do. We could probably work one out. We'll get some merch here at some point. Maybe.
No. Will we?
Yeah.
Will we?
The problem with merch,
new year, new us,
is that you got to come up with some money first.
It's true.
And
Sure.
I don't know, but it's not super expensive, but I never really have like $1,000 laying around. I usually put
Doesn't
it to
help
use.
when your friends are buying the competitor's chamois cream.
Well, that definitely doesn't help.
How dare you?
But I would go back into that store and just be like, hey, yo.
I'm gonna.
And be like, hey, give this guy a call. Trust me. Tell him I told you to call. And then I'll charge him double.
Okay.
That's how that works because we're friends like that. So anyway, let's jump into it. First things first on the list, we have Kerstperiode. One thing that I know you two probably didn't look at all.
What'd you say?
Kerstperiode. Yeah. So, all right. Why don't we talk about it?
Yeah. We'll keep it short.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kerstperiode is that period of time between
Christmas and now. Christmas and New Year's. It's a heavy block of cyclocross racing over in Belgium. It's like 10 or 11 races in 12 or 13 days. So it's like almost every day.
Yeah.
It's a great time. You get to wake up in the morning here for us. I get to wake up when my phone starts blowing up, and our little text group is sending 1 billion text messages back and forth at like 5 a.m. as they're making coffee to watch the races.
Oh, 6:30. Come on.
You
should be up and ready.
No, I'm 50, but I'm not that old.
You can't. Yeah, the texting, you can't. You have to be on it from the beginning. Otherwise, you can't keep track of it. But yeah, the racing was phenomenal this year. I really enjoyed almost every single race. There were a few times where I'm like, okay, the first half was amazing, and then it got boring. But the women's racing was awesome.
It was better than I thought it would be. I thought Fem would run away with everything, and she absolutely did not.
No, it was you just didn't know who was going to win any given race with the women. There was a good, 5 that were battling it out every race, and it was just a different result almost every time. So it was really, really good to watch.
On that note, make your call for women world's champ?
It's a no-brainer, man.
I'm gonna say Fem.
Yeah. If Lucinda can get a start, she'll be a factor. But if she has to come back from 18th place on lap 1, she's going to have a rough time.
I love Lucinda. She's not going to win worlds. I say Fem, and if Puck can get her head out of her ass, it might be a competition.
Depends on what kind of track it is.
Yeah.
They're all different.
Where's it at?
It's in France. They're all different, and they all have a different skill set.
Yeah.
I think Lucinda's the strongest of them all.
Motor-wise, yeah.
Fem is second strongest, in my opinion. Pook is extremely skillful. She's got quite a good engine as well. And then it depends on which Salen Alvarado shows up. She's got an engine as well. Mm-hmm. But if it's muddy and technical, it's either going to go the way of Pook or Lucinda or Salen. So
I've loved
I don't know
seeing
what kind of
Zoe in the mix a bit this year.
Zoe's looking great.
She's only been in the mix on the roadie style cross courses.
Yeah.
The heavy, long straightaways where she can really exert her strength. But she's up and coming, so that's fantastic to see.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, you know who we're talking about when we say Zoe, don't you?
Backstead.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It's cool to see her dad in the pits.
Yeah.
Work in the pits.
Yeah, I like Magnus. Magnus was a good dude.
Yeah. Seeing him walking around at any of the UCI races when they were coming over for World Cups, that was fun. Because you'd just be walking around and you'd be like,
Roubaix? Am I wrong in saying he won Roubaix, or was it Flanders?
He won Roubaix.
Roubaix. I remember that. That was awesome. That was awesome.
And anytime we mention this, I always bring up, you were his guy in the last Roubaix that he raced, weren't you?
Yeah, we trained a lot getting ready. Was it his last Roubaix? With Garmin maybe, or whatever it was.
I think that was his last Roubaix.
That's
I think
pretty
you're
awesome.
right, actually. Yeah. That was that whole documentary Blood, Sweat, and Gears that they made. That was like that run up. That was a big year for everybody. It was like we had hired all these guys, and it was Olympic year and all that stuff. But yeah, it was. If you haven't seen that film, you should watch it. It's pretty.
That's really good.
Is it bad that I've seen like probably half of it like twice, and I haven't finished it? I don't think.
No, I don't think it's bad. I haven't even watched the whole thing because I don't like to see myself on there. It's weird, but I'm glad that it's there because I don't have much footage of myself racing
Right.
from the day. So it's nice to see that it actually existed, that I actually did a thing.
That's kind of like the last episode when we did the food thing. I actually had to dig for quite a while to find that meme of you eating the was it noodles?
Lo
No,
mein?
what were you eating? Yeah,
Lo mein.
noodles.
Yeah, Chinese food. Yeah.
And once I posted that, I had a couple people ask, "Hey, where is that? I'd love to see that again." And I couldn't. I mean, I just had to link to the meme and the GIF. That was
There was
it.
a whole commercial that they did for that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I remember seeing
Can't
it.
find it.
It's
Can't-
out
I've been
there.
searching.
I'll
I've been
find
searching
it.
for 10 years for a clip from the Pro Challenge. I was watching it in your apartment with your brothers, and I think it was you guys were coming over Independence Pass. Maybe I might be wrong on the actual road, but you had chased back on, and there's a helicopter shot, and there's this one rider hauling ass down the mountain, and Phil Liggett's like, "Oh, look at this! Who is that?" And they zoom in, and they go, "It's Mike Friedman." And it was just kind of cool to watch with your brothers, but I haven't been
I
able to
would
track
love
it
to see
down.
that clip.
I know.
I would love
I know.
to see that clip. I mean, you know, like when you're going down a mountain, you only take risks when you're in a race, right? 'Cause
Fact.
you know,
Fact.
at least when at that level of race, you know the road is clear unless some deer jumps out in front of you. That road is clear, so you have all the ability to use the entirety of the road, so you can let it rip. That was the fastest I ever gone. That was the fastest I ever went on a bicycle. It was like 76.5 miles an hour.
Oh, jeez.
Dude,
Wow.
I thought 66 was fast. 72, Jesus.
76 and a half.
But who's counting?
Got to be rolling rolling on 23s at 76 miles an hour.
That's a tight sphincter move there. I can't even.
But it
imagine.
wasn't.
I bet everything was like slow-mo. And you're just flowing down, like you said, an open, protected road. Just the road, and you're just ripping down it.
But you
So
have
it
to
feels kinda
pedal
safe.
hard to go that fast, don't you? Just to
You have
overcome
to-
wind
you have to
resistance.
You have to be able to spin at a high cadence and then do the super tuck, and then you got to be able to trust your equipment. And when your equipment is daily gone over, then you trust it, and you know the road is clear, so you have the go ahead to run the risk. I mean, it was fun to pass those guys because that was like the only stage in my life where I actually was able to climb when we were at altitude, and I could climb at a high. Every time we went above 7,000 feet, I could climb really, really well for a big guy, and then I could descend better than those climbers. So it was like Zabriskie and Vaughters were both surprised that I was still there. That was fun. Yeah, it was like one of those moves where you like catch the group, you can see the group coming, and you go fucking by them as fast as you can, so that it's just like, who the fuck was that? Like I know that I'm not going to make it to the finish of the stage necessarily in the front group, so it's like you might as well have some fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rocketing by this group of fairly big name climber guys and just hammer them.
The teardrop.
Anyways, if someone could find that clip, I would be grateful because that was I've never seen that clip, and I would love to see that. It was definitely a highlight. It's one of those memories of racing that you just like wish you could find that.
God, what year was that? 9?
2012.
12?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's got to be out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I found clips from that year's race, just not that particular clip. I've even found full races of the wrong race.
Nice.
But
Anyways, yeah. So back to Zoe and cross. I'm not up to date on any of the cross stuff, and I mean, Zoe is, once you have the genetic gift, but then you also, when you have a parent that has the history of, Magnus, and you know how to train, and you have the connections, and then you can back it up with results, like it's there's a lot of guys like that.
And she's just, in my opinion, she's just starting to come into her own. I would still say that she's very young in it. She's still technically U23, correct?
I believe so. Opting to race elite.
Confidence begets confidence.
Yep.
Success begets success.
I mean,
So-
she's that's not her first elite podium she's landed on.
You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm looking it up.
I noticed that it looked like Vita our new
she's
U.S.
racing-
champion. She just didn't really well in Europe.
She's going to do World Championships. She's going to do U23.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is unique. So this is the first time that I know of. I'm sure it's happened before, but the first time I know of where we have a national champion who's going to race World Championships, but do it in the U23.
Cool.
Yeah, Zoe is 20.
There you
20. I was in college when she was born. That is just nuts. So she is not just U23. She is far U23. So she's got a while.
Yeah.
And she's running the top 4, 5, 6, pretty repetitively at top level. So, and she seems to like cross. So that's a good thing for us, in my opinion. How about the men's side?
It's
Kerstperiode.
It's typical. I mean, you have when Vanderpool's there, no one's going to beat him, and he rides away. And the good thing is the cameras don't concentrate on him when he rides away. They stay within the action that's within the race, the people that are actually still racing and not riding away. But when he's not there, the racing is real good. I mean, it's almost pack racing, and it's anybody's race to win. And then conversely, when Vanderpool's not there and Wout's there, Wout usually, for the 2 that he raced or the 3 that he raced, 2 out of the 3 he won, which was awesome.
He did well, and it was he even surprised. He said he surprised himself with this form. It kind of, from my perspective, looking at him, it seemed like he was genuinely surprised that he was that much on form, and loved it, and he went with it and took it the way that he could. But he's definitely not racing Worlds. Nope. He has said that. Vanderpool, is he out of Worlds?
It depends on what the status of his rib injury is.
Oh, that's right. And then Sane Camp is not racing her national championships.
Correct.
Because this is her last year. She's already announced that. She announced at the beginning of the season she was retiring at the end of the year and decided not to race her national championships, knowing full well that she'd probably win it because then they'll have a year without that jersey out there in the races. And so she respectfully pulled out of the national championships. Yeah. Interesting take on it. I think it's a good move. Everybody else?
Yeah, no, kind of, as somebody else said, classy move.
You got to pick your battles. I can't believe how fit they can stay and how many times they can ride at such a high level. Like cross racing is like, it's so hard, and road is already so hard at that level. Like, I don't know how they do it all year long and then repeatedly do it over and over and over it, like with success. It's
baffling. There were weekends where I would do 2 races in 2 days and I was slaughtered. And that's at my level and ability. Even if you have the better form and you've got your recovery dialed and your nutrition dialed and everything else like that, stringing together that many top level races together, at UCI kind of competition and consistently place where you're placing, it's just nuts to me.
I think what helps is obviously the teams that are built around these athletes and the trainers and the people that the athletes surround themselves with that tell them what to do. But it's also on the athlete to be honest with those people and say, I'm not feeling well, and they're not afraid to pull back. Even if they have a targeted race, they'll pull out of it because they don't want to risk the future, where they're not allowed, they're not afraid to check their ego.
Yeah.
They're not just going to go to a race to hopefully do well and to damage anything down the road. They're okay to pull out of a race just to make sure everything stays on schedule, and that's how they're able to continue to race at a high level. That's just the way I see it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just think it comes down to genetics to a certain point.
Oh yeah, that plays a point too, for sure.
The top 1% of these guys are able to do that, and girls are able to do that. But if you look at the top 2-3% of these guys, they're not racing the road at the highest levels that these guys are. I mean, genetics definitely play a factor in some of this stuff. I mean, it's just the level is so high. So whether you're racing, even if you are the 1%, I just don't know how your body recovers so fast and so well if you do it repeatedly over and over and over.
You know
There's no
who's
off season anymore, though. Like
No,
the way that we all trained and raced even a decade ago doesn't look anything
no.
like even at the amateur level, people
The,
don't
the
take
top
time
of
off.
the top of your sport now is multidisciplinary.
Yeah.
And they know how to manage it.
and it's working. That's the other difference. They figured out their between the nutrition, their training, recovery efforts, and all the markers that everybody tracks now and traces. It's netting out in riders that can perform well in multi-disciplines throughout the year and never really massively go off form. Whereas I know less than, to your point, Tim, less than 10 years ago, there were riders that would talk to me and be like, yeah, I'm doing road and doing cross and, something else. And it'd be like, okay, so it's about a season and a half before they burn up. And once they get into their second road season, if they start with road, they go through, they do cross at full intensity, and they're back into road again. About a month or two into that, they're just going to hit a wall. And it would happen time and time and time again. And it doesn't seem like that's happening as much now. Also, I would say, though, that the commitment isn't the same, meaning these people aren't going out like we used to and saying, I'm doing every race in that season. They're now, it seems like, dialing it back and picking and choosing. Or if they're doing road, they're coming in for a later part of it, or, so on and so forth. Kind of like Wout when he was doing cross this year, where he only came in for a few races towards the end of the Kerstperiode,
Right. And he's off to training for road
road now.
Yeah.
He's got 2 more cross races coming up.
And it's like, well, why does he do it? And he does love cross. He's better at it than he enjoys it more than he always forgets how much he enjoys it. But the one thing that always for me is like, that's a hell of a motivation. Every start that he takes, he's making like 80 grand, 80,000 euro.
I'd be getting on the line.
Yeah. I'd be like, I got 5 on there. Can we work a 6th then?
You'd be a fool not to go get paid for training. I mean,
right?
80 grand to go get some training stimulus? Sure, I'll do it.
80,000 euro start fee. That's just nuts.
Well, you saw at the last race, the last couple of races, when he showed up, it's
all in. And the fans are nuts.
The fan base is there, and that's what pays for the event.
Yeah, because they actually charge at the front door. It's a crazy concept. If we charged at the front door, we would be broke.
We would have no attendance at our series.
Yeah, for sure. But, you look at that, and then he did 8 laps in the last race, and the quick math, I'm an engineer, so I can do this. He made 10,000 euro per lap. 10,000 euro per lap, and the laps for what, 6-8 minutes? Yeah. That's nuts. I don't know. Anyway, so that's Kerstperiode. But that's always, they're riding in all sorts of conditions all the time. Cold, rain. There was a lot of mud in there. And I've been listening to interviews of like American kids that are over there racing, and they're getting interviewed and they're asking what's the biggest difference between Belgium racing over there versus racing in the U.S. And it's the mud. And to their assertion, they're like, mud is just below the surface all the time where they race. So even if it's dry out, once you run it through a few races through there and you start cutting through the top layer, you're getting into just greasy mud, whether it's rained there recently or not. So, riding in the cold, riding in those conditions, it's always an issue. Kind of like around here lately, riding in the cold and getting our training rides in. The question is always, how do you dress? What do you dress? I've had guys tell me, I've tried to get Rich out on multiple rides, and he's always like, I don't have the gear, which is funny coming from the guy that sells the clothing. I just got to point that out.
It's a fact.
But, I feel like I finally have enough gear and that it fits me well, and I'm getting to the point where I can kind of figure out what to wear when. But I wanted to talk about it because it's always an issue for cyclists when it comes this time of year, at least those of them that live in, normal states that get cold.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys handle it? Because I know you had a problem, like 2 days ago, and you got experience.
Yeah, it's just a stupid mistake. It came from overdressing, and even though I was going slow, it still promoted a lot of sweat, and the sweat from my arms crept into my gloves, which then filled with water, and I was wearing a set of non-breathable thick gloves. And about less than 10 miles out from home into a headwind that's real feel of 2 to 3 degrees, my hands began to freeze like rapidly. And I started to get real nervous. I was about 5 miles out from home, and I was trying to do everything I could to keep my hands warm. Started to panic a little bit, and then I noticed a trash bag in the bushes, so I went and rescued it and just wrapped it around my hands, and I was able to make it home. It was a stupid mistake because I've been for the last like 2 or 3 winters, I've been really solid and had no issues like this with, layering and managing my effort. So I'm not sweating. It's just one of those rookie mistakes where I overdressed and promoted too much sweat. And that's the shit that'll get you in trouble, especially in this weather. So it's that if you leave the house and you're cold for 10 minutes, you're layered perfectly. In my opinion, and what I find works for me, because then you naturally just warm up. But if you leave the house and you're hot immediately, you're screwed. Turn around and take a layer off.
A lot of it
stop
too
somewhere
is
and take a layer off.
We've always had that expression. If you're slightly cold at the start,
You're perfect.
then you're dressed right. But I got to say, I have also kind of figured out, what your intensity is going to be, how you're going to be riding, and you can edge that maybe one layer, one direction or the other, towards the start. Case in point, our New Year's Day ride, it was cold. I wanted to be warm. It was just a parade kind of ride. Like, we're going to do New Year's now, and it's fun. We're outside. It's New Year's Day. Yay, yay. Take some pictures, post them on Instagram. And then we rolled up, and at the start, you were sitting there.
Yeah.
After I had made all these decisions to wear extra layer so that I could be warm on all this.
Because you were going to ride super
slow. It was a
slow.
Zone 2 ride. I mean, Leah was going to show up on a fat bike and was worried about, if we're going to do 50 miles, what speed are we going to go? And fat bike. And she decided, we were like, you can come. We'll slow down. We'll go like 10 miles an hour. That's no problem. We'll be out there for 4 or 5 hours. We're good with that. Roll up. Tim's there. Tim's like, I got shit to do. Let's get going. So his Zone 2 ride, if no one's been on it before, but his Zone 2, I've said this, is my Zone 8 or 9. So we then spent, how long was it? Just over 2 hours, right?
It's like 2.5.
Yeah. 2.5 hours where it checked off like an intensity ride, like I did intervals, I think, in that.
But just think of all the things, the medals you won on Strava.
Yeah, they popped up everywhere.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And
local legend.
I got done and I don't know, one of the apps said, congratulations, you just spent 1 hour and 15 minutes at threshold heart rate. And my first thought was, well, I had threshold. And my first thought was, well, that's not the definition of threshold. If I really spent that amount of time there, it should have been cut by 15 minutes. Therefore, my threshold is actually set lower than what it really is. And then I realized it said heart rate. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm screwed. So, there's a nice Zone 2 ride, 1 hour and 15 minutes at threshold heart rate. Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
But I was overdressed that day.
Yeah, no.
That was my
it's
point.
Easy to
Sorry.
Do. Yeah, no, it's very easy to do.
How are you guys dealing with it out there? How's the weather been in Colorado? Do you ride? Are you riding in the winter right now at all?
Well, it was 60 the last time we talked to you. Did you get out? And
you wanted to go out New Year's Day.
I did 77 miles on New Year's Day off the couch.
Nice.
Yeah, I was pretty fucked from that ride. But it was fun. I like that feeling of, just, I don't know.
Tired.
Yeah.
Tired in a good way.
Yeah. I like the feeling of kind of, smashing yourself a little bit. It varies. Some days are 60 and now it's cold. I did fat bike the other day. That was a lot of fun. I think the biggest thing with the weather out here is you got to remember, if you stop to take off your clothes, you got to evaporate. So in line with what you're saying with the sweat, so many people, I did this group ride and there was like this stop halfway through to refuel. It's a supported ride called Project Super Training. The guy who runs it, Will Dugan, also runs a company called Waffles. But this Project Super Training ride, they do this ride and they charge people, and then they take that funding and help organizations like Pedaling Minds has been one of the benefactor organizations from it. And they pick a different organization every month, but they do this stop and nobody takes their clothes off. So I'd gotten dropped in this climb, showed up, and there was no lines for any of the food or beverages or whatever. And it was great, but I was the only one to strip down. And it's just weird to see how many people were freezing on the way down, and I was nice and toasty because you gotta let it evaporate.
Yeah.
Even at that temperature, your water, it'll evaporate and dry out quite a bit between time you take it off and put it back on. I think it's a pretty common mistake, when you stop, like even at a coffee shop, even if you're cold, you got to take it off and air it out.
Yeah.
Well, I have first. I have a lot of rules for winter riding. Number one is don't stop mid-ride. But if I am forced to stop mid-ride because people want to stop and we know there's going to be a coffee stop, I always take a dry base layer, throw it in a Ziploc, and stuff it in my back jersey pocket. And I just go and I change out of my wet base layer and put on a dry one. And that's like such an insane difference. Oh, and don't wear a sports bra. Because those things don't dry out. So it's just free. So I don't know. Just
Tim,
changing clothes.
Special here has a lot of insight on dressing. He wanted to. He's been complaining about this for a long time. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say here.
Yeah.
My solution is to move to parts of the country where it doesn't get cold.
It's not the most cost-effective solution, but it works.
No, I used to ride in some stuff that I would not when I was living in Illinois, because you kind of had.
You had to.
Your choice of sitting on a trainer for multiple hours, which I'm not really inclined to do.
It's different now with Zwift and.
Well, yeah, that's true too. But I always prefer to be colder than hotter. Like whether it's at the start of the ride or halfway through the ride, if I'm starting to feel sweaty, like not even getting cold because of sweat, I just don't like being hot. So I probably dress a lot lighter than a lot of people, which can be a problem at times with your toes and your fingers. One thing though that I've done recently, and I don't know that I'm going to keep doing this, but if the weather's right, it can't be too cold. But I've actually been riding like deerskin gloves, like $7 Harbor Freight deerskin gloves. I've gone down the route of $300 this and that cycling specific clothes. I guess a tip that I would have is you don't have to buy that stuff necessarily.
No.
I was riding in sweatpants the other day. It was great.
I wouldn't recommend that.
That's awesome.
No chamois or anything? Just
I had a chamois on. This is when I went fat biking. I was worried about enough layers, but my knee warmers had dropped down to my ankle underneath my sweatpants. And I was still warm. It was like 13 degrees out.
We're laughing because we've all been there. I can't tell you the number of times.
Knee warmers are only good for two rides, and then they just once they lose their elasticity,
they just give out.
It's bad.
Some of the last few that I've gotten, I used to buy them smaller, slightly smaller, so that they would stay up a little bit longer. I think I told Tim this trick a long time ago, and he probably don't use it, but I used to take the elastic, we'll call it elastic, but the cuff of the bibs and the elastic on the top of the knee warmers, and I would interlock them. And just putting that one fold in there, they would stay up. And you could actually run with smaller knee warmers or leg warmers, either one. But it creates this tourniquet of elasticity around everything to the point where you just can't ride that way anymore. So, I do the whole jack them up as far as you can. I've been going with larger size ones and everything, but a few rides in, they start giving up the ghost. Except for you started riding with them on the outside, which always looked weird to me because it looked like I was like, I don't think we sell shorty shorts in our team store.
Yeah, it looks like you're wearing booty shorts, right? No, I wear them on the outside because they well, first of all, I have generous thighs, so I don't have to use my shorts to hold them up. And it doesn't give me the sausage thigh thing going on. I hate that feeling with the knee warmers cutting off. Well, women have more fat on their thighs than men do traditionally. God. So it's not a good visual, and it doesn't feel good either. I beg to differ. So it's more comfortable wearing them on the outside.
I will say, though, I tried that after you pointed that out to me. I tried wearing them on the outside. I saw Anthony doing it at one point, too. So I pulled them up on the outside. I had to keep pulling one side of them up every 2 or 3 miles. I was like, fuck this. I'm never doing it again.
You need bigger thighs.
Apparently.
It helps.
That fixes a lot of your problems on the bike.
Yeah, I've heard. I wouldn't know. No, but all right. So moving on from there, we do need to take a minute to cover a little bit of local news. Sometime during this whole curse period, watching cyclocross at one point, friend of the podcast, Kenneth LeBay, said something. I didn't even really read the whole thing, but apparently he claimed that if Lucinda Brand was going to win the race from where she was at that moment. He was going to race the entire CCC in the Masters division. And I believe Anthony sold him out and took a screenshot and put it somewhere, and somebody ran with it and posted it all over social media. And so as a result, Kenneth has gotten a long stream of text, emails, posts, messages asking about him racing cyclocross this fall. He wanted to clear up the rumors. He is not racing cyclocross this fall in any way, shape, or form because he has to cover everything. I did find it interesting that as the announcer, he's got to cover everything. I did find it interesting, though, that he did say if I were to, he would do the last race of the day in Cat 5 because he doesn't need to announce that anyway. And pretty much everything's shut down, and he's going to be there for like 2 hours after the race anyway, tearing down his own stuff. So, I'm going to say don't rule out a possible Cat 5 showing, but that's based on no direct information.
Yeah, this was all in jest, and it was a fun little joke, inside joke. But I think a lot of people thought it was actually going to happen. But
so apparently, we're in charge of squashing Chicago rumors now.
Yes.
Don't worry, you'll have time to do that tomorrow when you go to the awards.
Oh, yeah. So the CCC party is tomorrow. I know I've covered it before on there, so I'll just mention it.
And the elite women's competition and elite men's competition was won by Cymet racers. Tim won the overall for the men, and Katie won the overall for the women, and neither one of you guys are going to be there. So I'm going to put on a Tim mask and stand up and get his award for him. And Rob, you're going to have to put on a Katie mask.
I don't think anybody can put on a Katie mask. I don't have a Katie mask. You're making me. I'm not going to. Yeah, that's not happening. Leah's going to claim both of those. So, but that should be fun. If anybody's around and this gets out in time, make your way down to Specialized in downtown. I don't know, downtown. I call it downtown. Where is it?
Fulton Market area.
There you go. So Fulton Market, Specialized, one of the anchor stores owned by Specialized, and that is where the party will be at. And hopefully you'll see some buttonhole chamois cream over on the displays there, because they do actually stock some buttonhole chamois cream at that store after I guilted them into it at one point.
We should get a buttonhole ticker. See how many times.
See how many times I mentioned buttonhole chamois cream? I think we're up to 3 or 4 at this point. So yeah.
So who's been fat biking? I know you don't have one, but we need to get you one. Rob's been fat biking.
I've been out a couple. I went out yesterday. I haven't been out nearly as much as I wanted to because we've had so many things going on in the family that I haven't been able to.
I rode the other day. There's a race coming up in February, a night race I might dabble in.
A nighttime fat bike race. That
would be fun.
That would be
cool.
super fun.
I would be all about that.
Yeah, I like fat biking quite a bit, actually. People poo-poo on it, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, depending on what you're riding on, like one of the things here, it's all single track for like 40 miles. They have trail, and you have to wait until it gets tamped down by the skiers and snowshoers. Yeah. But once it's down,
man, when they groom, that's nice. Do they have groom trails out by you?
They do, but the place I'm talking about is like, it's like riding single track. If you deviate off of a 1.5 foot line, maybe a 2 foot line, you're going down 3 feet into the snow. So you really have to be, it's just much more technical in terms of not wanting to. So I don't know. I find it fun. I also find the tire selection to be quite fun. It really changes on what you're riding on.
That's interesting because I know we talked about it a lot last year with you with tire selection. For most people that have a fat bike, it's whatever tires are on there, and if they're lucky, they get a pair of studded tires for the really bad.
I think
conditions.
If you're racing, and you care about how fast you go, I think then you really can get into the weeds on it.
Isn't that the antithesis of fat bike racing? Though, caring about it.
It's whatever you want to make.
Studded. I saw something. A studded fat bike tire was like $200.
Oh yeah,
I was like, nope.
And it's and quite honestly, it's not. This is one of those things in life where the price has nothing to do with the cost. While they do cost more to manufacture, they have a captive market, and they know they have a captive market. There's not a lot of options, and if you are the kind of person that needs studded fat bike tires, you're buying them. It's if they're $200, if they're $300, you're going to end up buying them. I will say that luckily I'm able to pay wholesale on them, and luckily there was a sale last year, so I was able to pick up a set at sale price at wholesale. So it didn't cost me that much, but they weren't freaking cheap.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you're not, riding high mileage on the road on your fat bike, so your tires are going to last.
These last, yeah,
quite
they'll
a few
last
seasons.
for, yeah. And they were probably twice as much as the used wheel set that I was able to buy for them to go on to, which is crazy. But, especially for a wheel builder, I had to go and buy a used wheel set because that was cheaper than building my own.
Yeah.
People don't give things away these days anymore.
No.
Nobody does.
No. But yeah, so fat biking around here, though.
I just like the workout the fat bike provides. I ride Zwift and I'm on the trainer, but fat biking is when it snows and it's dumping and you go for a road ride on a fat bike when the roads are totally covered and you have the hard pack underneath, you can ride it. If you ride a trail that's not been groomed or it's not been packed down, they're kind of a pain in the ass. But I don't know. I just like the slow slog and the weight and the scenery that you see when you're riding in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you stay a lot warmer because you're working hard to go 5 miles an hour. So it's a great way to be able to get outside and stay warm.
It's almost
on your bike.
I don't know if you would agree, but I feel like it's a 20-degree difference in dressing. So it's like if I'm going to go fat biking at 15 degrees, it's like if I was riding on the road at 35.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you.
It's I can drop, like I went fat biking yesterday. It was 20 something, but I had one less layer even on my legs and everywhere else than I've been riding at that same temp on the pass and road. You're not hitting the wind. The wind isn't getting you nearly as much usually. And no, I like it. I like it when it's slow and you can. The only thing that disturbs me when I'm fat biking is the deer. When they surprise you when you come around a corner.
So we have some fun events in the Chicagoland area for our local listeners. If you are inclined to, if you have a fat bike or you know somebody who has one, you can borrow one. We have a race coming up this Sunday down at the Forge, and then coming up second in the series out in Rockford is a January Jam, and what's the date on that, Rob?
It is I want to say 19th.
19th, yeah. And do you want to talk about the codes for that for people that are interested?
Sure, yeah. So promoter for that obviously listens to the podcast, wanted us to drop a line here. Hopefully people can get out and do it. There are six codes that can be used by podcast listeners.
One code that can be used 6 times.
Correct.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
6 coupons total.
6 coupons.
Sorry. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm
so
going to dig it up.
One of the codes is Road is Dead.
There's only
right?
one.
There's only one.
There's only one. The other one is for us.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't tell people about that one. It's Road is Dead, all one word. You'll get half price entries for up to 6 people.
There you go.
If you're listening to this and you had any desire to do that whatsoever, I would register sooner rather than later, so that code is still alive. So there you go.
Did you say it's at Atwood?
Atwood. I believe it's at Atwood. I know it's in Rockford.
That's a good trail system.
And the name of it's the January Jam?
Yep. And it's the registration's on Bike Reg, like everything else these days.
Yeah.
Except for the other fat bike race that is this Sunday, which is out at the Forge.
And that's a one-off race at the Forge, yes. Yep. And then there's a whole bunch up in Wisconsin. I know there's the ones where they pound the nails in. Huge Ass.
Oh, Huge Ass.
Yeah, those are fun.
Huge Ass.
Huge Ass. Yes. I did one of them a couple years ago, and then I did a relay race. They had a relay one year. I did with Bob Schrank, and
that was sledding involved too.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So it was like everybody leaves their bikes in a pile on the ground at the bottom of a sled hill, and one member of the team jumps on the sled and rockets down the hill, and then you run to your bike, grab your bike, and go. It's super fun.
It's a great concept, but unfortunately now with our winters the way that they've been, you can't ever guarantee you're going to have snow. That's the only thing that kind of sucks about it.
Yeah, true. So, Mike, what's the format of the one that you're looking at doing? Is it just
I don't know.
besides at night? Is it?
I haven't dug into it. It'll probably be groomed. It'll probably be up at in Frisco, so it'll probably be like on a groomed ski track. It'll probably be. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know anything about it yet. I just.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say about fat bikes, and this is like one of the bigger things I've ever noticed in a change that I've made on any bike ever, was going from tubes to tubeless because of the mass of the tire and the tube. And switching to tubeless was I had when I was kind of getting into fat biking last year, I never really ridden tubeless. I've always been on tubes or tubular tires. And I could not keep up with the people on tubeless tires. And then we switched bikes, and then it was the opposite. I was dropping them and they couldn't keep up with me. And when I switched to tubeless, it was like a night and day difference. I could not believe how different of a change it was.
Those tubes for fat bikes have to be pretty heavy, no?
They're very heavy.
5 pounds?
They're heavy, and then the low pressure is so low that the friction between the tire and the tube is much larger. Yeah. The surface area is much larger. So it was just like a stark difference. I could not believe how much of a change it was.
I will say I made the change last year after a few years of riding. I made the change to go tubeless, and it makes a marked difference in the weight of the bike overall and how it rides and handles for sure. And I don't really, one of the big drawbacks for me in tubeless and what I always bring up is the fact that it doesn't sit well. Meaning if you put it on the shelf and let the bike sit and you're not using it, it doesn't age well. It'll have a tendency to lose sealant. It'll lose the pressure. And once you lose the seal, then you're basically starting over. You got to redo the base tape. You got to redo everything. I will say that I did 4 wheels for myself last winter, and one of them completely lost all pressure. And when I could reinflate it, it wouldn't go back, whatever. But the rest just got kind of soft towards the end of fall, and I was able to reinflate them. I just threw sealant in to all 4 of them and pumped them up, and that's all it took. So nice. The size of the tires, the amount of air volume that's in there, and how stiff those beads are, allows you to have a really good seal. So it actually ages a little bit better on the shelf, in my opinion, than like say a gravel or road tire. Road tires, I think, are horrible, tubeless if they sit around. On the road, whatever. If you like using them, you like using them. I don't care.
How much sealant do you have to use in a fat bike tire?
A lot.
Like one.
Yeah, about. I think they recommend like 6 or 8 ounces.
That's got to have an effect.
It's a whole
too,
bottle.
Like
that we had the 4-ounce bottle, and then you've got the 8-ounce bottle. I think it's like 6 that they recommend. I think I do a full 4-ounce bottle when I do it.
That's a lot of sealant.
Let me look that up because, I don't want to misspeak here. Talk amongst yourselves.
I'd take that sealant out and reuse it for my gravel tires or road tires or whatever.
Tim, you ever do any fat biking?
Not really. I've ridden one, but never got around to it in Colorado, and I don't think it's going to be a thing in Tennessee.
Yeah.
If you're going to be fat biking, might as well be mountain biking. We don't really get snow. Incidentally, they're getting 5 inches of snow today, so that would be nice. But
so there's a chance.
There's a chance.
It's like having skis. You don't use them until a certain time of the year.
Right.
When you need it, it's
there.
there.
I just don't think in Tennessee. I mean, they don't get any snow. So,
I mean, my perspective is I'm the guy that sits there and makes fun of everybody that has a fat bike because I've never ridden one. And then when it snows and there's quite a bit on the ground, I go, "Damn, I wish I had a fat bike."
Yeah, I would say for years around here, we have a great trail system. You guys, I always talk about it, and I use it all the time, and I love it. What we tend to find, though, is in the old days, it would snow a lot, and then you get some freeze-thaw cycles, and you end up with this patchy, really thick, hard, icy sections that, everyone is trampled all over, and it's all different thicknesses, coupled with bare asphalt in areas because that was the area that was in the sun or whatever else. And then it used to be to the point where it was unrideable by anything. And it would stay until spring. You basically couldn't get on the pass until you had a long string of 40 to 50 degree days, and then it rained for like 2 days straight. Then it would finally melt enough that you could get on the path. But now that I got a fat bike, even on those, nice days where I can get out there, you can get over that ice, and I can throw the studded tires on if I really want and just climb over that stuff and just get a good path right in. So it has added a lot of outdoor time for me in the winter and made sure that I don't completely lose my fitness like I used to. I like it that way. Well, anything else on fat bikes, or are we moving on to the next thing?
Hey guys, I got to jump.
All right. Well, it was good having you. We're only going to hit one more thing before we end this. But thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thank you. Have me back. Love you guys. Miss you guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
As always.
All right.
We'll see you
later.
And then our last thing is gear restrictions. Apparently, somebody was talking about. Was it Wout was talking about it?
He had made mention to it. It's been in the media for last week and a half about how to make a way that or an idea to make the professional peloton safer, and one of them has been gear restrictions. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how you would restrict gears. I don't know if it's smaller front chain rings. A lot of the banter is because, the standard now in the professional peloton is 54 or higher. TT bikes use 60, 61 tooth chain rings, which on a TT, it's not that bad because you're not in a group, you're by yourself. You want to push the fastest gear you can. But it's more concerned about when the group is together and the safety of it all. And I don't understand how restricting gears would make it safer. Again, I've never read any of the articles. I just saw that it was in the news.
The premise is that it slows it down and supposedly, and that would make it safer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys ready for my one take?
Sure.
You guys said I couldn't do it in like one statement. I'm going to do it in one statement. Ready?
Ready.
It's just like junior gears. You put junior gears out there, and you've got juniors that are still finishing in the break in 1, 2, 3 races. So it doesn't slow people down. It just makes them spin at a much higher cadence, and in my opinion, makes everything less safe. That's my take.
How does it make it less safe if you're pedaling a higher cadence? If you can pedal a higher cadence,
because you're at less control. You're less stable and you have less control than if you were at a lower cadence going the same speed.
But what if you know how to pedal at high cadence?
Cool. How many sprints I've seen at the end where you got some junior in there just spinning like a madman, going crazy just to finish in the pack. I've seen it cause wrecks.
I don't really see this as a solution. Again, my standpoint is you have a lot of the professional peloton has gotten considerably younger. There is a lot less experience in the professional peloton. I think the peloton is, they see this young kid put out a high wattage for a long period of time. It catches somebody's eye. They throw him a jersey, put him in the professional peloton, and he has no idea what he's doing because he hasn't been subjected to this for the majority of his life, like some of the older colleagues in the professional peloton, and that creates sketchy moments. Now, granted, there are veterans in the peloton that make some risky moves, and accidents happen. I get that, but that's my standpoint on it. I don't know if you would agree, disagree. I just think a lot of what's happening in cycling today through all disciplines is everyone's good. Not a lot of people have a lot of skill. Skill starts from a very young age.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, we've hit that a couple times before, that's kind of the major overriding problem.
I mean, that's for me, that is across all disciplines: mountain biking, road racing, cyclocross, track, whatever.
But there's a bit of me that's always kind of wondered, because this is a repeating theme and has been through the ages. I mean, you can go back and you can see interviews with like Lamond and Hinault back in the 80s complaining about, the younger riders coming up, although Lamond was a young rider at that point, where they don't have the experience and they're not as safe. They don't know how to ride and with the group and X, Y, and Z. And it's the same theme that just keeps repeating. And I can't help but feel like some of this is just generational change. And as the riders get older, they're more experienced, they're safer, and they're looking at the same dumb shit that they used to do, and they're like,
yeah,
these guys are out of control.
It's cyclical. I mean, the incoming generation is, more youthful, stronger, maybe, eager, more willing to take those risks. Who knows? And they're willing to put it out there, where some of the veterans are like, been there, done that. That's not necessarily the safest thing, and they want to make it safer. I mean, Wout is the one making some of these claims, and granted, he's hit the deck quite a bit in the last 2 seasons, so I see his side of the fence. And not to say that it's the fault of the peloton around him. He's made some errors himself, which is
funny you said
on
side
the
of the fence. He's run into a fence during a time trial.
And who knows? But if you look at it, everything that cycling has developed over the years, through the equipment, through the clothing, it's all been made to make the sport faster. Why? Because it's more exciting for the people who watch it.
Yep. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I've been thinking about it. I mean, the junior restriction years ago was about saving their knees. And I definitely understand your opinion on, the high cadence, out of controlness, because if you're spinning a high cadence and you're bouncing all over the saddle and you can't keep up and you're looking down at your feet, you're not looking where you're going. I also, at some point, all the different rules and regulations become annoying and restrictive.
Yep.
Agreed.
And you want to promote bike riding. It's another cost, another consideration you've got to figure out. As far as junior gears go, there are some juniors that are super well developed and can push a big gear, and there are others that aren't super well developed and can't push a big gear. So maybe it evens the playing field at a junior level race. Do they have to ride the junior gears in the
They've eliminated junior gears.
I was just going to ask.
Well,
they did it last year. Was the first year where they eliminated.
Oh, that's good. Well, then I'm out of date and I wasn't paying attention fully what you guys were saying.
It's a new change. It's a new change.
Yeah, I mean, I used to race bikes. I don't follow racing nearly as much as I used to. I'm into teaching kids and people how to ride bikes for a lifetime more than I care about racing. That being said, I want to see racing continue. But I wasn't fully paying attention when you guys were talking about Wout and his gear choice.
He was suggesting gear restrictions in order to basically slow the peloton down, in the theory that it would make things safer.
I mean, every time you increase the speed, increases reaction time, and all these guys are battling for the front. I mean, when I was racing in Europe, it was always so sketchy and such a battle to hold your position going into like a turn, to go into a climb, or even in the team meetings, you'd say, okay, there's like road furniture at this kilometer, and you have some guy waving a flag, but when you're coming at 60 kilometers an hour, or even 50 kilometers an hour, everything comes up so fast. Your reaction time is not that fast, and if you have one incident, it ricochets back. So I don't know. The speeds have increased because the bikes have gotten a lot better. The aerodynamics have improved. The clothing has improved. Fitness has improved. And the gear restrictions, it's not going to slow down the peloton. I mean, you're going to have to go to junior gears back to junior gears to slow down the peloton. And they're pushing, like, that's the big thing now, is pushing even bigger gears than it used to be. It used to be 5311s, now it's 55, 56, 11, 10s. I don't even know.
And that's part of it. I think they're not necessarily adding big chain rings necessarily to push a bigger gear, more than they're adding the big chain ring so that they're more towards the center of the cassette, or using a more advantageous chain line, because the chain friction of running that smaller cog is enough that it's robbing a lot of power at those speeds.
The friction line in line, so bigger chain ring in the front, and now
it kicks them over further, and they're more towards the middle, so they're more efficient. So that's where I'm like, they're putting these rings on, but it's not like they're using those 10 cogs or 9 cogs. You know what I mean?
I mean, these guys are always going to take risks. I mean, they're paid to win races. They're given contracts based off of their most recent results, unless they have they win a big one earlier in the year. And the number of teams is also dwindled so much, especially in the U.S., that people are going to take risks no matter what to get it. You know, they're going to attack in the feed zone or dive a corner, or, you know, I don't know. Cycling is such a strange sport, such a beautiful sport, and such a strange sport, and it's so different between Europe and Asia and the U.S. that it's like they're almost, even though they're the same thing, they race totally different. That's why a lot of athletes come from the U.S., go to a World Cup, go to the World Championships, go to, you know, the Olympics and get their heads kicked in, because they're not racing at the same level. And the races also race so different. You know, like a World Championships is not going to race the same as a World Cup, and the World Cup is not going to race the same as a Pan American Championships. They like there's more on the line. The nerves are higher. Like the Tour de France does not race like Paris-Nice or any other of the one days. I mean, they're just different. They race totally different. I mean, you can even talk to like you know, a Tour de France rider, and they'll tell you that the stress level at the Tour, and they publish this stuff when it comes out, that the stress levels are so much higher. You know, whether you're doing like a big one day or a small one day, or a big stage race or a smaller stage race, they're just different kinds of races. And people will take much larger risks because that result matters more to the team or more to the marketing campaign, or, you know, from the result standpoint, guarantees you a contract so you can continue flogging yourself to make a small amount of money, unless you're in the top 2-3%. Although I would say probably that the salaries have changed drastically since I raced.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. All right, I've only got one more thing, and it's a quick thing, and we got to wrap this up. We talked about generational change and the young kids coming in. I don't want to say made a decision. I'm not going to be president of the Illinois Cycling Association and as of about 2 weeks from now, after 7 or 8 years of doing it. So not for any one particular reason. It just, I've done it a lot. And I always said, if there was somebody that was willing to step in and take over some of it, I'd gladly step aside and let them. And there were a lot of elections where all of us on the board went through election cycles where there was nobody going up for any of the positions. So mention it again. And there's people that are interested in doing it. And it looks like we have, I'll say young, fairly younger and or newer riders in the Chicagoland cycling community that are stepping up to take on that role. For those that don't know, you have, if you're a part of USA Cycling somewhere, you have a local association referred to as an LA. And here in Illinois, our LA is the Illinois Cycling Association. That is your local governing body or local governing wing for USA Cycling. Used to do a lot, now doesn't do nearly as much because it changes, but that's details. So we do have our nominations open. The positions open are president at large, which runs the Illinois Cup, and secretary. And we have a couple nominations in for all those positions. But talk amongst yourselves. If you or any team are interested in being a part of it, please send an email in or check out the website to learn how to submit. We are taking nominations up through Tuesday, whatever the date is on that, the 14th, I believe, through end of day. And then we will have an election from that point on. So if you have...
Are the elections based on per team or per person?
Per team. Once again, it's per team. And I did go back and check to make sure that wasn't just something I was remembering wrong. That was the case even before I came into office. And the reason for that is because we have, at least then, we had some very large teams in Chicago.
Really large ones, really small ones.
Yeah.
You want to have
everybody have an equal voice.
Yeah.
So that you don't end up with, we had a large team back then, and if every one of them, if their board said, hey, everybody vote for this person, they would determine everything in Illinois racing for the whole state. So we did it that way. Every time this happens, I get the individuals who are just, what's the word I'm looking for?
Not on a
not affiliated with the team, but what do you call it? Privateer.
Yeah.
Right. You get your own privateers that go, oh, this is stupid. I should get a vote because I'm in you. No, the team structure is what maintains the sport. So you're part of the problem. You should be in a team. And if you don't like it, start your own team and, be your own. That way you can cast a vote and you can be a part of it. And then we'll expect you to participate in things. Imagine that. So, yeah, so I wanted to throw that out there. If you do know of anybody interested or you need more information, whatever, get a hold of me. Get a hold of me at Cymet, or you can contact us even at this podcast at roadisdead, all one word, roadisdead@gmail.com. Please email in any talking points that you would like for us to cover. We would love to cover them. It's always good to have some good information. We've been doing this like once a week kind of thing pretty regularly. We'd like to stay with it, but it's kind of hard to do if you hit a week where you've got nothing to talk about. Then again, I didn't think we had anything to talk about. We're over an hour again. So,
There we go.
it's what happens when you get these personalities together. We find stuff to talk about. It's almost like we like bikes and stuff and the people that we're working with. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll try to get another episode out again next week. Again, send us some emails, grab some buttonhole chamois creams, stop by the Pedaling Minds website and check out the work over there that Mike is doing. Thanks for joining us again, Mike. And
11 years in business.
yeah, happy New Year's, and get out there and ride your bikes and enjoy the ride.